It's the Big E Sports Extravaganza.
It's a tradition.
Your weekly destination for all things going on in the sports universe. We don't just talk X's and O's. We go beyond them. Bringing you some of the most engaging guests from around the nation. Fasten your seatbelts. It's showtime. Now, here's your hostess with the mostest, Elissa Walker Campbell.
Elissa Walker Campbell, we are so glad you are with us on the Big E Sports Show, and things are certainly heating up on the hardwood as March Madness is just around the corner, and we are delighted to welcome back to our program legendary college basketball coach who had an illustrious career that took him all over the country with a lot of amazing moments, especially with Florida State. He led them to 5 NCAA tournaments, including 2 Sweet 16s in his 11 years at the school. Spent 31 years overall as a Division I head coach. What a true pleasure always to have back, and that is the great Pat Kennedy. Hi, Coach.
Hey, Elissa, how are you? Great to be with you.
It's wonderful to have you back. And listen, we are going to hoop it up and talk some basketball, but I actually was in Tallahassee this past summer when my youngest son, Eli, played at the Southern Junior at Seminole Legacy Golf Club, which is an impressive course and layout. And a little bird told me that you are a starter now at Seminole. Is that true?
Yes, I am working there, and it's probably they're saying it's maybe the number one collegiate golf course and club. As you saw, it's unlike a lot of other facilities on college campuses, it's a full club, and they've got a tremendous men and tremendous women's program that they're very, very proud of here at Florida State. And
I understand it was recently renovated. Is that correct?
Yes, it was. And, they have really put a lot of money and effort into what they call their Olympic sports, such as soccer and softball and baseball and golf. And Florida State, other than their football program, which we all know about right now, they have really done incredible. They've won several national championships in that Olympic sports area.
You know, Pat, you are 72 years young. So how many weeks or how many hours a week are you logging? And just how much are you enjoying this, reconnecting with Seminole fans and just friends on the course?
Well, it's great. It's, you have first of all, the 2 teams are housed out of there. So you get a chance to see all the young people. We've got some great golfers, the number 1 girl golfer in the world, and we have the number 2 boy golfer in the world. And then you get to see a lot of, former Seminoles, some of the former players that come out, which is wonderful. The governor plays there at our course. And so we have a lot of VIPs in the area that play there. And when people come to visit, they love to get out. Supposedly one of the very best golf courses in the Panhandle, and that includes the great courses over in Jacksonville. So it's been enjoyable and been fun.
Speaking of VIPs, back in the day, you played, as I understand, with the legendary Florida State football coach, and that's the great Bobby Bowden. So come on, we got to go inside the huddle and share some stories. What can you share about the legendary coach?
Well, he was amazing. He loved his golf, and he never got a chance to play much during the year. So what we did is we had 28 consecutive golf outings that we did in a matter of 32 days. So we would get a private jet, myself and him and the famed Gene Deckerhoff, the voice of the Seminoles, the voice of the Tampa Bay, the voice of the Tampa Bay Bucks. We'd fly to each of these spots, as far out as Dallas, as far north as D.C., and we would play. And Coach Bowden would tell the same jokes every night at all of those banquets. We would still all laugh at him because he was just a great storyteller and really just a wonderful guy to be around.
And I believe that Kilburn Country Club was actually his home course. And it was what a press release came out in the month of September that they're going to erect a statue of him outside and on the property. I believe it's going to be on the 16th hole. So what do you know about that and this pending or upcoming ceremony to celebrate and honor the legendary Bobby Bowden?
Yeah, they're going to build a statue, and Coach Bowden used to love to come home after practice, and he was great with the media. So a lot of times after practice, nothing had to be formal. Sometimes he would just sit in the lobby with a bunch of reporters and chew the fat a little bit. And then when he'd get home, he would love to exercise a little bit. He'd grab 2 or 3 clubs and walk right out of the back of his house, and he'd start to tee it up. And as you can imagine, nobody kicked him off the course. So he was well known and well connected to Killarney Country Club, which is being renovated as well. It's going to be built into a beautiful spa golf course facility. So a lot of great things happening here in Tallahassee. College towns are fun. Wow,
absolutely. You know, Pat, what made Bobby Bowden such a great coach, and why was he so beloved?
Well, I think his sincerity and his honesty and his strong faith in the Lord and the way he presented to his team and helped those young men to realize that there was a lot more than football in life, and there was even a lot more than academics. It was what you were about as a person and how you lived your life on a daily basis. And you know, you can't fake that. You know, you can't hide that. And his players, no matter where they came from, no matter what their background was, where they all kind of fell in love with Coach Bowden. It's just the way he was. He was a very uniquely special individual. I was very blessed to spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah, you know, and Pat, when we think about just what all he accomplished, he really did transform Florida State into an NFL machine, produced a lot of amazing players. I believe 26 consensus All-Americans, aside from the fact that they won 2 national titles during his 34 years there as the head coach. How did he influence you, even as a basketball coach?
Well, we used to get a lot of time together when we were flying around doing the golf tournaments, and so we got a chance to talk about coaching, developing young men, developing teams, handling adversity. That was the one thing that he was great at. No matter what adversity he had with his young men, he never turned his back on his players. He always supported them. He always loved them. He made sure that they could figure out what was right and what was wrong, and what they should be doing, which was the right thing. And so, you know, it was very, very enjoyable. And you know, he had a philosophy about college football that you know, penalties were the worst thing you could have. It was an extension of lack of discipline and lack of intensity. And so I took that onto the basketball court, too. We used to have a goal of having 8 or less turnovers a game, and even though we played very fast, and we had 4 NBA, you don't see this anymore, but we had 4 NBA players
wow.
On our teams at one time. And we could score a lot of points. We held the record for most points scored against the Dean Smith team with 118. And we did that with only 7 turnovers. So I learned a lot about don't turn the ball over.
That's right.
Get a penalty. That was his philosophy.
Well, let's move ahead and let's hit the hardwood and talk some college basketball. The SEC has been flat out dominant this season. Just give us your takeaways. What have you witnessed in the 2024-25 season?
Well, it's been a fascinating season because it's been a culmination of all of the things that have developed, the NIL, the money that's being given to the players now directly, which is just so unique from what we grew up with in terms of how we had to put together our programs. Although I do admire the college coaches that are just saying, hey, it is what it is. Let's stop complaining about it. Let's stop trying to overanalyze it. Let's just learn how to live within it. And I think those coaches who have done that are doing probably a better job of coaching their team. I think one of the most incredible things, Elissa, is getting used to the number of teams that are in a conference. Like, I don't think people realize there's 18 teams in the ACC.
Wow.
Now, when I got involved with college basketball at this level, the ACC was the powerhouse basketball conference, and there were only 8 schools in the ACC. So right now, there's potentially 14 schools from the Southeastern Conference. If they take Oklahoma and Arkansas, that could possibly be in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's a new age, it's a new wave. We got to get used to the number of teams that will come. But boy, there are still some incredibly talented teams. I think it's going to be unbelievable. I've got about 9 or 10 teams that I think can all get to the Final Four. We've had a chance to see the ACC teams here in Tallahassee. A team like Clemson is really, really a wonderful team. They're so well balanced. Duke, obviously, with Cooper Flagg is a team to look out for. But there's a lot of teams you could like, and there's a lot of teams that aren't getting a lot of publicity, such as bonds that could break through and really create havoc in the NCAA tournament.
Well, Coach, let's talk some hypotheticals. I mean, you mentioned the Final Four, what about the Elite Eight? Do you think this could be made up of only SEC teams because they have been so dominant?
Well, yeah, I think the three teams, and the one in particular that I like the most that gets mentioned, but not as much as the other two, is, and I'm not just saying it because I'm down here in the state, but the University of Florida, when they are playing their best basketball, they are really a terrific team. Their guard, Walter Clayton Jr., I think is probably the most complete guard in the country. He rarely has a bad night. Obviously, Alabama, very talented, not pulling it together yet. I think Bruce Pearl is doing one of the great coaching jobs of all time because he's a big target every night, and he just keeps raining. Johnny Broom is a go-to guy that can do it inside and do it outside. So those three teams, Auburn, Alabama, and Florida, I think they'll move through the tournament in a very positive way.
What is your perception of Missouri? They dropped 110 on Alabama the other night.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis Gates, who I recruited when he came out of high school, he played with Quentin Richardson in Chicago, and Dennis went to Cal and was an outstanding college player, a very bright young man, and has done an incredible job coaching. But he is finally, last year, you talk about how quick you can turn a program around.
Yeah.
Seems like last year he couldn't win a game. And now he's emerging as one of the sleeper teams. But he's not asleep anymore after what they did the other night. So Missouri, again, just a number of those teams. It's like Vanderbilt. The season Vanderbilt has had beating the teams that they built that they never, the teams that they beat that they normally would not beat, is just another team that you're going to have to look out for in the tournament.
Well, my goodness, when we were talking about Missouri, they didn't win a single SEC game last year. They only had 8 wins. So when you look at them, I mean, what has changed?
Well, I think, first of all, there's no question about it. And we as coaches always come back to it's talent. Jimmy Valvano used to say that the team with the most talent wins 95% of college games, and that other 5% is really coaching.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is what kind of players they have. So, and I also think, Elissa, this is what we're going to see. A year ago, people were questioning Dennis Gates, and even some of the rabid Missouri fans were saying, well, we might have made a mistake. We may need a new coach. And then you turn around a year later, because of the portal and because of NIL and the money you can offer a youngster, they're hiring a new basketball coach here at Florida State this year. The great Leonard Hamilton is retiring.
Yes.
And a lot of the big money people here are saying it's not really about who we hire. It's about how much money we have to give that individual to go out and get players. So there's a stark difference, even from the administrative side of how you build a program. And I think Dennis Gates in Missouri is a perfect example of that. 1 year, can't win a game. The next year, you're 20-plus wins and really playing well. And I think they have much better talent level than they did a year ago.
It will be fascinating to see how deep Missouri can go because Coach Gates is confident that the Tigers, they are prepared to make a deep run, of course, in the SEC. And you were just talking about Florida State. Leonard Hamilton, legendary coach, he's going to step away. How would you summarize how their season has played out? Because they're 16-10 right now. They got a big game on Saturday.
Yeah, they play Louisville on Saturday. And
correct.
You know what?
What's that?
They're just a few games away, and there's a group of schools in that category. When you've got 15, 16 wins now, you're looking at it and saying, boy, except for these 3 or 4 games, we would be right in the mix to be a really strong bubble team. So they're not a bubble team right now. They just don't have enough quad 1 wins. And the quad 1 wins will be the cornerstone of evaluation for teams to get into the NCAA tournament. You probably hear that a lot now when you're watching TV when they say quad 1. And that really just, we used to just call quality wins, but now they're actually computerized. So teams have got to really make sure that they break through that level. Florida State has not had a chance to do that this year, and they're a good team, just not good enough to be an NCAA tournament level team.
Longtime Florida State basketball coach Leonard Hamilton is going to retire at the end of this season. Were you surprised that he's stepping away after 23 years? Because he has been legendary in Tallahassee. And just, Coach, put into perspective what he has meant to this program.
Well, Hamilton was a great hire. After I had left, they had hired Steve Robinson, who is now assistant coach at Arizona and was from North Carolina with Dean Smith, and he was head coach at Tulsa. Steve just couldn't turn it. So when they had a chance to hire Leonard, I spoke to the president and the athletic director. I thought Leonard would be a great hire for Florida State because he was in Miami. He knew how to recruit the state of Florida in the Southeast. So Leonard has done just an incredible job. A lot of building has gone on in their facilities with him at the helm. And I remember Leonard Hamilton was the assistant coach for Joe Hall at Kentucky, recruiting guys like Sam Bowie out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. You saw Leonard all across the country, and he came up really paying his dues. So when he got a program like Florida State, it was good that he could get a program, like a Michigan State, like a Kansas, Tom Izzo, obviously, where you could stay for a long period of time. So he's been here 20-plus years. He's left a great mark. He's a terrific representative of the university, and he'll be involved now in the hiring process. And that's a good thing to see. It's almost like when Michigan State's got to change coaches, or Kansas, if and when Bill Self retires. It's good that those guys, I think, will be involved with the hiring process. I like to see that.
Pat, looking ahead, who might be that next head coach? Who would be a good fit?
Well, I think Sam Cassell would be a great fit.
Oh, yeah.
People down here are very excited about Sam. He played for me. He's now
That's
the
right.
associate. Yeah, he's the associate head coach for the Celtics. And Sam's one of the few people in the whole structure of the NBA who's got 4 championship rings, 2 as a player and 2 as a coach. He's an excellent coach. The kids would love him. He's got great recruiting ties. Those guys are in the NBA. There's so many of these families. You look at LeBron James' son. There's so many of these players now that are Sam's contemporaries who their children are now coming through as outstanding players. And believe me, Sam would come here and set goals to win a national championship. Sam would remind me of a Kelvin Sampson down there in your part.
Oh, yeah.
Kelvin sets very high standards and very high goals. And God bless him. He's a good enough coach to be able to accomplish them. And I think Sam would bring that same mentality to Florida State.
Well, Kelvin Sampson, we're based in Houston, as you know, has just done a remarkable job with his team, with the Cougars. Is this their year? Can they put it all together?
It's amazing because I still believe, Elissa, that he's underrated. I would agree. Kelvin just does an incredible job. I mean, I know you got to mention the Tom Izzo's and the Bill Selfs of the world, and before he retired, Jay Rice and Mike Krzyzewski's. But to me, Kelvin Sampson's one of the top 3 or 4 coaches in the nation, and he just does an incredible job. They play great defense. They're an incredible rebounding team. They always have the individual players they can go to when the game is on the line. And the kids resemble Kelvin. Intensity, with control, and with a determination to accomplish things. You watch when the game gets tight and Kelvin's Houston team comes out of a timeout, those kids are really prepared to execute whatever it is Kelvin believes is the next step in winning that game. So I love Houston, and winning the national championship this year, though, I still think there are some more dominant teams than we realize, and you got to probably put Duke at the top of that list, because Duke is really starting to come around and play extremely well.
Hey, anything can happen. Speaking of Kelvin Sampson, of course, we remember his time in Norman at the Lloyd Noble Center when he was the head coach for Oklahoma. And I want you to give us your take on the Sooners. They started the year fast and furious, 13-0, but they are struggling, and they have double-digit losses in conference play. Do you believe they are a team that is on the bubble, and how might the committee evaluate them?
Well, I'll tell you, Oklahoma is clearly right at the end of the bubble. And the way they've played recently has not really helped them, because they look like they've digressed. And they have an outstanding coach, and they've got some quality players. But they have digressed. And you mentioned it, Elissa. Sometimes when you start looking at the scores and you see the number of points the team is losing by at the end of the season, that really works against them. And I kind of think that's the case with Oklahoma. And even though they don't judge per conference, there's still a little bit of that twinge in there that, hey, Southeastern Conference, who are the teams at the bottom of that conference? John Calipari might get the push there just because of all he's done within the NCAA tournament, because Arkansas is kind of in that same boat. Although I think Oklahoma has stumbled a little bit more than Arkansas has coming down the stretch.
Hey, we are winding down our time with the great Pat Kennedy. The countdown is on for March Madness. It is the stretch run for teams. And it's this time of year that you really start building your resume for the Selection Sunday, correct? I mean, this is a critical juncture in one season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, of course, teams that have established themselves. Like I think Rick Pitino, for all the years he's coached basketball, he's doing one of his finest coaching jobs ever. I also like Creighton out in the Big East. You know, it seems like somebody always pops up from the Big East. I think those two teams are teams that are coming on strong at the end. In particular, St. John's. They get behind in games a lot like a Kelvin Sampson team. They get behind a little bit, and it just doesn't seem to bother them. I had mentioned Clemson. I really like Wisconsin. And, out of the Big Ten, you got Michigan and Michigan State. They're playing tonight. Tom Izzo's team is really, really an outstanding team right now. And so it's going to be interesting. But like I said, I think there are about 7 or 8 teams. And there's some teams that I don't think are included in that, like a UConn or an Arizona or even a Tennessee like in years past. So it's going to be interesting to see who actually emerges as the Final Four group.
You mentioned Rick Pitino. How about he raised the idea of having the Big East and the ACC? You're talking about 18 teams in the ACC, but to merge and to create a college basketball super league. What did you think when you heard that?
Well, Rick has come up with a lot of interesting ideas as he's gotten a little bit older.
An imaginative mind, yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know what the next steps are for the NCAA. We felt when we were coaching and running the NABC, which was the National Association of Basketball Coaches, that there had to be some major changes made in the structure of the NCAA and how they operated. It's come to fruition. We always thought that at some point in time the power conferences were going to break away from all the other conferences, and that's happened. There's going to be some intriguing offers to those institutions in terms of the money that they can make. To probably eliminate the NCAA and just become almost a professional league of sports teams that simply play under the umbrella of universities. So we never thought we would see the moment that we're seeing now, but there still will be more changes. But those changes will take another 15, 20 years. So I think for now we're settled into what we're going to know as college basketball.
It is a special time in college basketball, and the countdown is on for March Madness. A true pleasure to catch up with the legendary men's college basketball coach, Pat Kennedy, and we look forward to connecting when it all gets underway. Thank you so much for carving out some time.
Thank you, Elissa. Great being with you guys.
You bet. Take care.